Hi, this is Majinoni, and now that Rotworld is all said and done, I thought, let's talk about it. Now, I didn't grab all the issues here, but this just gives you, some reference points. What we have here is Animal Man and Swamp Thing. And I think the key thing to look at with these two issues is this. At the launch of the New 52, DC had two characters that, who knew what to do with. Animal Man was not even, we'll just call it like it is, a C-level character. And maybe even a D-level hero. Because he wasn't even in the public spotlight any longer. And then you have Swamp Thing, which was a fantastic Vertigo title. And it's out of place now. There's no Vertigo. And, it was a character that was supernatural in a sense. It dealt with environment and, it's a monster with with a human conscious type thing. No place for it in the New 52. But somehow, some way, DC took these two characters and made an amazing story with this. And, they basically catapulted these two characters to the forefront. And for that, I have to admit, DC did a fantastic job. From the very beginning, you can see where these two characters were going to converge later on. Now, what we have, for those of you who aren't familiar, Animal Man, he has the ability to mimic animals. He basically I don't want to say absorbs, but he can, like, if he needs to run fast, he can take the cheetah speed. If he needs to fly, he can take the bird's wings and fly, that kind of thing. And he is a part of this thing called the Red. And the one way to look at the Red is, think of the Red as animal life. And it's like a spirit type thing. Swamp Thing, very plant-like, very organic. And he is a part of the Green, which was obviously plants and vegetation. And Alec Holland was the character that, he was Swamp Thing. And when it started, he wasn't. And that just freaked out a bunch of people. But within a very short period of time, he takes the mantle of the Swamp Thing back. And what we have is like, I guess you can almost say it's like it's a story of a hero who doesn't want that responsibility any longer, but when the world is faced with a grave danger, he has to reluctantly take it, reclaim it, and then become a better person. In regards of Animal Man, you have Buddy Baker, has-been hero. He just wants to deal with his family, and his family's threatened because of this thing called the Rot. And the Rot is this death. And basically within this world, there's a balance of the red, black, and green. But they're always at war, but there's a balance. Not one side should ever truly take dominance over the other. If one did, then there's trouble. In this case, the Rot was just laying waste to everything. Whatever the Rot was just like basically killing towns, killing people, killing plant life. You had these animal creatures, and it was very difficult for the heroes to just basically fight against it. It seemed that no matter what happened, the Rot was always getting an upper hand. Every victory they had was just the Rot had something else in store for them. Now, anyways, eventually what happens is these two characters meet, and then they have the Rotworld saga. And the gist of the story, this part here, is they meet, they see this world where the Rot is taken over, and their story splits from that moment. And for me, this is where I think everything that was great about these two stories, it just collapsed instantly. And I really became disappointed. You have to realize this. You have two characters, they're in the normal world, and then they're teleported to this imaginary world of what the world could be like, because they failed and they weren't there to stop the rot. So what we have is this world full of zombie superheroes, zombie villains. And, I know that somebody can argue the point, Majinoni, they're not zombies. They're the rot. And the rot just took over their body. And to a certain degree, you're right. But let's look at it this way. You have a superhero. The rot took over it. He's no longer in control. His only thought is to kill anything that's living. That almost sounds like a zombie. Not in the sense of the classical I eat your brain mentality, but it's the fact of you're no longer in control of your body. Somebody else is, and you just need to kill. So that's the angle that I'm coming at. Now, while most people would get excited about, oh my God, look at this, you have the cities are all in ruin. Well, look at that, there's superheroes that survive that are from the red, and then you have superheroes that survive from the green, and look who fell. It's an amazing thing. And you know what? I could agree with you, but for one small reason, I can't. How many times have we seen that story before? Just think about that for a second. And I'm not talking about a low-profile story that appeared here and there. What I'm talking about is just out of DC, you had the Black Lanterns. What were the Black Lanterns? They were zombie superheroes and family members that rose from the dead, were given a Green Lantern ring, but of course this is black, and they were trying to kill the heroes. Zombies. Now, Marvel beat the zombie horde over the head with a until that stick broke. How many different stories, miniseries came out of zombies? Every time you turned around, there was another zombie miniseries starting. And what was that all about? It was about superheroes turning into zombies, and they ate people. At least that was more of the classical sense. So when we get to the Rotworld, that's what I saw. I saw Black Lanterns. Keep in mind, the rot is black, right? Green and red. Green Lantern, Red Lantern. You see the connection now. Now, the other thing that I looked at is this. These two characters came from the modern, the modern world, or the real world, into a world in which they were missing, and the rot was able to take over. Let's just assume that that was correct. That without these two heroes, the rot would have taken over everything, which we all know that that's a lie, because Superman would have stopped it all. But anyways, that's a side story. Look at it this way. No matter what they threw in these issues about the Rotworld, we knew, or at least most of us should have known, that by the end of this series, the Rotworld would revert back to the real world with no change. And that, to me, it's kind of like what you're doing is you're teasing us, but you're teasing us with something that is an improbability. It will never happen. It's like saying, hey, the Chicago Cubs could win the World Series. Look at that. No, it's impossible. They'll never win. And that's the truth. It's just something that you're never going to see. This thing won't happen. This world will never, ever exist, because you cannot have a world in which Superman, Batman, and all these other characters got eaten by or killed by the rot, and you only have a small handful of characters left when you have 50 other titles that are running at the same time. It's impossible. You could have stopped reading the Rotworld, picked up the issues afterwards, and guess what? You got your ending. You didn't need this. This was fluff. This was filler. It was a playground in which a writer could play in and an artist can play in, and they can do whatever they wanted, and they knew that nothing mattered because it has to go back. you have to realize there were things that were going on in Animal Man, for an example, with Buddy's family being at danger. There is no way possible the Rotworld storyline would have went so far that Buddy could not come back to save his family. That was an impossibility. And once you knew that, this was done. This series was done for me. And I think this is one of the reasons why I didn't put out the review for each one of these issues, because I saw what was coming and I did not want to spoil anything for the people who were enjoying it. Because I mean, granted, I read it and I enjoyed little pieces of it. You know, like the Green Lantern of this world was an interesting idea. But at the same time, it's like you introduce a new character and he's dead. Just like, boom. Just when you're starting to get to know him, he gets killed. And while I understand that this is what they're trying to show, that this is a dangerous world and anything could happen. Well, it's a dangerous world in which anything can happen, but it won't matter because everything gets swept away once this is done. So, in effect, why even bother? If they had something in here that really, truly mattered, like something that would have affected the main the DC universe, then I could applaud it. And then I can say, fantastic job. Kudos. You did it. You did something fantastic. But if you did not read these two titles, you would never have known what was going on. Now, the end of all of this stuff. I have to admit, after the end of Rotworld, it did pick up a little bit. And the one thing, I guess you can say, that made sense and didn't make sense to me at the same time was, at the end, you have, the villain escaping. And you have the heroes trapped, and they're like, what are we going to do? Arcane got away. Well, the Rot goes, oh, okay, we have a little bit of energy left, we'll send you back. Don't worry about it. Trust us. It's okay. There's a balance, we don't... Granted, we may have been influenced to do some horrible things, but that's not like us to go that far. So please go ahead and do it. And I'm reading this, and I'm just like, are you God of mine? I'm like, are you kidding me? I understand there's a balance, but to have this balance where it's... I don't know. To me, it was like... It was this moment in time where I went, that really isn't interesting any longer. It needed teeth. And it basically looked like a cat that was declawed. And it didn't hold any value to me in terms of a story. To me, it just became a simple plot device to get the heroes back, because they couldn't figure out another way to do it. Like, the green and the red couldn't bring them back. So, let's just give it to the black and we'll just call it good. Now, when we get to this part here, you have, like the family being threatened and then Buddy coming in to save the day. And this was a really, really good moment in time. You even have a character death. But the problem is, and I think this is the biggest problem with it, with character death. Now, you have the heroes fighting the villains. You have the villains, being defeated, and everything looks fine. Some craziness and shenanigans happens, and then the kid who was responsible for terrorizing the family is alive, and he goes to attack to kill Buddy, and then Buddy's son dies. Now, under normal circumstances, this is a very horrific moment. But let me tell you why this failed. And not only did it fail, it really provided zero emotional impact to me whatsoever. And I'm not even saying that because they've kind of hinted something bad was happening. Here's the problem. You couldn't see what happened. Here you have Buddy's son jumping in front. You have what appears to be stabbed, but you can't see the stabbing because there's an elbow in the way. The only reason why you know you got stabbed is, yeah, you get some blood here, but then you see the blood there, and then it's over. I'm like, I just sat there, and I was like, I looked at it again, and I looked at it again, and I looked for something. And if you really look at the earlier panels here, there is no clue that that was going to happen. See, there's nothing in his hand. You can't even see his other hand. And here, nothing. You can't see. There's nothing. You can't see. There's nothing. Nothing. Suddenly, his fist is going through his hand. His chest, and killing him. This panel could have been an amazingly powerful panel, but it was reduced to crap. No emotional impact. It's not that I'm saying I wanted to see the knife going into his chest, or the claw, or the spike, or whatever he used. It's not that. What it is you don't know what happened. Even when you see him on the ground, and over in this panel here, you still don't see what he got stabbed with. And I think this was the greatest fault of the death. And for me, the death became to me, the death became something that wasn't planned. It was something that, to me, that they threw in at the last minute because they had to shake things up. And for me, it was a letdown. It was a tremendous letdown. Now, in terms of Swamp Thing, what we have is basically what they're doing is they're settling the storyline between Alec and Abigail. And I guess you can say that was like a relationship that was doomed. And because they just kept saying, she's evil, she's going to kill you, she's the Antichrist, blah, blah, blah. Bringer of death, ruiner of worlds, succubus of hell. And Alec is like, she's a beautiful woman who really wouldn't do anything to hurt you. And, I'm reading this and my eyebrows just twitch and going, are you that whip that you can't... Oh. But, what do? You're a plant. You take love when you can get it. And so that basically settled that story and then planted the seeds for the future. Now, to me, I didn't have that much of an emotional investment in terms of Swamp Thing because, he's a plant. For me, I expect tragedy. I don't expect happiness to go Alec Holland's way every single moment in time. I expect sadness, some happiness, and, I expect to see a storyline where he's going to be, he needs to be isolated and alone to a point. So, I didn't mind the way that ended. Animal Man? Oof. This one, I don't know. Issues. I have issues with this. So, overall, this is what I have to say about the first 18 issues of Animal Man and Swamp Thing. And surprisingly, it's the same opinion for both. Started off fantastic. I would have recommended these books to anybody. Once you hit Rotworld, storyline just dead. Dead to me. Boring. Unimaginative. But if you're a new reader who's never read Blackest Night, who's never seen Marvel Zombies, that might have been pretty darn amazing. With all things considering. Or maybe if you're just a zombie fanatic and you don't care how many zombie movies you see, it's fresh every single time. I'm sure then you liked it. But once we got to this end, while there's lots of good elements that they threw in, I think it could have been better. Especially the death. And, I rarely say this about deaths, because I really think that death in comic books is important. It's important for the characters, and it's very important, I think, for the reader to understand that the life of a superhero is not always they will come back home. You will not always have your loved ones come back. There is responsibility, there is risk, And, you know, the minute you put on a cape and a mask, you're putting your entire family at risk. And for them to come home every single night safely is a lie, because that would never happen. A villain will eventually find out and target you and target your family. So that's why I think it's very important that there's death. It keeps it honest. And while I applaud that there was a death, I just don't... I don't know. I think Steve should have done a better job at the panels. I think what they really needed to do maybe is maybe shrink this panel down to like a half a panel, move things around, and you really needed to give this a half a panel or a full page. And you needed that from a different camera angle, and you also needed more clues, you know, as to what the guy is doing. I mean, heck, even if... See, the other thing you have to keep in mind, too, is even if he had something in his hand... I mean, look at this. There's nothing in his hand. What's he doing? Is he casting a spell? Is he taking the pieces of wood? You don't know. And I think this is basic... I don't know. I think the editor and the writer and the whole creative team just got wrapped up in, we need to kill him and we need to make this a sacrifice, and they didn't bother to step back objectively and going, we never planted the seeds to make this matter. We never planted the seeds to make it sense. And it's a shame, because I think if this one panel was done correctly, this could have been a very powerful book. And I think it would have had a lasting impression, and it would have really cemented it as a truly outstanding run. But as it stands now, starts off good, ends decent. Swamp Thing, same thing. Starts off good, ends decently. Nothing great, but keep in mind, I'm being harsh. I do believe that there's a lot of people out there who are going to find really good enjoyment from the ending. So just take my harsh criticism with a grain of, you know, leeway. Give yourself a little flexibility with that. Anyways, sorry it took so long to finally do this. If you have any comments or questions, let me know. Rate the video up, down, let me know what you think. Really let me know what you guys think. Which do you think is the better series? What did you think of Rotworld? Did you think it was good start to finish? Or do you agree with me that it started off fantastic, went to rot, and then it just kind of whimpered at the end, or tried to gain momentum at the end to end strong but just didn't quite build enough? Let me know. Like the Facebook link. I give out comic books, Crunchyroll anime reviews. I know you want to watch some anime reviews. They're on Crunchyroll. That's me on Crunchyroll. So until next time.